Cool. All right, so I'm going to introduce Herb. Um, so Herb is uh, coming from, well, Herb is the founder and executive director of Keney Park Sustainability Project. And I have been to Keney Park Sustainability Project. It's a really beautiful space. Uh, Herb works with a lot of great volunteers and folks in the community. They do a lot of hands-on training. They have gardens, husbandry, uh, working with live animals, aquaponics, woodworking. Um, or I'll let you speak to it more, but it's a really great project, and he's going to talk to us about what they're doing today.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. Anybody that knows me know that I like dread these situations, but it's so hard to say no to Nairi, so here I am. I can talk a little bit about the Sustainability Project and how we came about. We actually started off as the Family Day Foundation, and we did an annual Family Day Festival in Keney Park for about 15 years. Moved back to Connecticut in 2009 and then took over the festival from some other family members. And we did it for a few years, but we got to the point where for me, it wasn't, I don't know, it was a great festival. It had a lot of history. The community loved it. But I felt like we could be doing more. So we started to shift our focus to Keney Park specifically. Um, Wanted to address issues of health disparities and wanted to address the decline in the park. And the Sustainability Project is kind of the result of those intentions. We actually didn't start the project with any real any real goals. We had one 8x4 raised bed in behind the park house here in Windsor. And when the produce, actually Doris Johnson from Deep, she had it set up, but I was kind of managing it, and we started giving the produce away throughout the season. And I was like, this is really cool, like giving produce away. It just felt really good. So we were like, okay, how can we do more of this? So then we installed 21 raised beds to give more produce away. And we had this really large volunteer base. People were reaching out constantly wanting to volunteer in the park. So we started connecting our volunteers to our vegetable growing. We were never intended to, and I still don't think we are yet, a production garden. But everything that we've added to our project over the years has been just the result of community interest. And then also, I don't know, it's just kind of morphed on its own. But today, our two main areas of focus are forest management education and urban agriculture. And on the forest management side of things, we operate a milling operation where we treat from the and some local community folks, and we mill that lumber and we turn it into furniture, and we also use it to build signs and kiosks and benches and stuff like that. Also, part of the forest management side of things, we maintain the trail system in Keney Park. So we plug a lot of volunteers into just general trail maintenance. I mean, we may build a bridge here or there, but really it's just keeping the trails open. And that's the forest management side of it. On the urban ag side of it, we do a number of different things. So we do beekeeping and honey harvesting and animal husbandry. So we have some chickens and some goats. We partner with the Hartford Maple Club, and we do a maple syrup project in the early spring. We also do hydroponics and aquaponics. We do mushroom cultivation, regular gardening, and a bunch of other different things. We also do a lot with water retention or water reclamation. We have some rain gardens here and some edible rain gardens. But overall, like our main focus is just reconnecting people to the healing power of nature. And we just see all these different activities as different ways to do that. And I'm being completely honest when I said none of this was intended. I mean, it's just all kind of just, I don't know, I'm along for the ride, I tell people, because, every year we add something new. And I think because we've been able to stay a small organization, we've been able to accomplish a lot more. Um, There's not a whole lot of overhead. We still only have one full-time staff member. Pre-COVID, we had an average of 600 to 700 volunteers a year. So we were able to get them to help us with the growing of produce, the trail maintenance, and whatever activities we needed. This year, we saw probably around 67 volunteers throughout the whole year. So it was a huge drop, but luckily, we've gotten the site to a point where it doesn't require as much maintenance. So we were able to squeak by. We hired a couple of part-time people who came in help when needed. And then we have this volunteer base that just keeps coming back, the faithfuls, we call them. So with them and the couple of people that we hired, we were able to squeak through um, for this season. Um, as far as the farm to school piece, I think we first started selling produce to the school in 2018. Um, and we just had excess produce because we were, at that time, we were selling to Hartford Food Systems mobile market. We were selling at a farmer's market. We had a farm stand here, but we had this excess produce. And I'm not sure how I connected with them, to be honest. I just don't remember. But we had tons of our arugula and we had tons of Swiss chard, and they would take it. Um, it was kind of random. We would just call them when we had it, and they'd be like, "Sure, we'll change the menu. We'll put it on this week's menu. Just drop it off." So that was kind of the first year. Second year, pretty similar. We had more produce. I think the first year, 2018, was about 400 pounds, and 2019 was about 1,500 pounds. But we started to give them more stuff. So we gave them a ton of cilantro because they were making sofrito. We were trying to grow produce that they would use, but there still was nothing structured. There wasn't anything that was, consistent. Um, and that was 2019. So 2020, fast forward, still no structure to this. It's very, very organic, but we definitely tried to work with them in their menus. The year was much different because obviously because of COVID, so they started doing these produce boxes, and we were able to get them. I think it was between 13 and 15,000 pounds of produce in 2020. Um, Mainly because of these produce boxes. They were handing out boxes of produce with the prepared meals that they were serving to the community, but still no structure. Obviously, COVID kind of messed things up. So for 2021, we're excited to announce that we are actually planting our crops based on their menus. So they basically said to us, during the summer months, we can take squash and zucchini this many pounds per week, or green beans this many pounds per week. So now we're working with our farmers to plant those crops specifically for the school system so that they'll purchase them regularly throughout the season. So that's kind of how it is morphed. And I think the reason why it has worked is because Lonnie Berg from Food and Nutrition just get locally sourced produce or locally grown produce into the school system. She's very committed to that, and they're very flexible. We are very happy to partner with them, and we also partner with Lauren Little and Zania and Manny and other local farmers to kind of figure out how we can work together to get more produce into the school system as well as sustaining our operations. And they're very open to it. Um, what else? Yeah, that's kind of the farm to school side of it. Um, right now, the majority of produce that we grow does go to the Harvard school system, but we also sell produce to Hartford Food Systems mobile market. We are at the North Hartford Promise Zone market on Saturdays where we sell produce. We have a farm stand here that we also sell produce at, and we sell to a couple of restaurants, the Tavern restaurant here, and Sweet Harmony Cafe in Middletown. And then whatever excess produce we have, we just donate. We work with the Angel on Edgewood, Shandaya. She does a number of large events, cooking free meals for the community. So we give them tons of produce. We work with Lauren to distribute produce to the schools that she works with. And then often we'll just set a stand out front and give the produce away. Because we have so many different projects that we're working on, It's there's so much room for growth as far as this aggregation and distribution of produce, but we kind of have to balance it with our milling operation and the animal husbandry and all the other things we're doing. We're looking at now. We're working with the city to acquire some vacant lots to increase our growing areas. We want to get as many of these spaces activated for growing produce, whether it be for the school system or any of these other outlets. The key is finding individuals in the community, whether they be community-based organizations or just private citizens, to steward these spaces. Because I mean, it's easy to set up a community garden, but if you don't have someone committed to running it, owning it, and being responsible for it, they just end up becoming, blighted properties. So we want to activate those in addition to, you know, growing our space here on site, um, to continue to feed this system into, or feed the aggregation system that serves the Hartford school system. We currently grow produce here at KPSP, at Oak Hill School. And then we have an acre by the river up in Windsor that we grow produce as well. We just added that acre this last year. And I was like, yeah, it's an acre. It'll be fine. We can manage it. I planted like 3 rows down there, and then the heat wave hit and I kind of completely abandoned it. So this year we're going to try to look at that acre again and see if we can get some support to keep it productive. But all of these spaces that we plan on adding, those spaces I just mentioned, and the vacant lots, we hope will all eventually or potentially feed the food system. I mean, the school system. So in terms of new projects, we are working with Agrovolution, which is a company in Hartford that helps design, set up, and install aquaponic systems. We are working with the city of Hartford to get some space at Waverly School to set up an indoor growing system so that we can grow leafy greens year round, specifically for the school system. A lot of politics involved, so we're not sure exactly when that will get off the ground, but that's what we're working on now. We want the school system to be able to access locally grown produce year round. And if we can make an education component to it and get the kids involved in the process, learning how to grow it, helping harvest it, it just becomes a really strong experience for the school and for the kids. So that's kind of what we're working on now. The shift that we've had to make during the COVID year, which is what we're calling it, is we weren't having a lot of schools and individuals come out to the site. So we started a home garden kit program. And with this program, we installed over 100 garden kits throughout the community. And the garden kits included 4x4 raised beds, 8x4 raised beds, 5-gallon pots, and 5-gallon hydroponic kits. People weren't leaving home. So we felt like this was one of the only ways that we can get people to grow or to continue growing at home. In this coming year, seeing the 240 home garden kits. So that'll be our focus for this upcoming season, is getting more raised beds out there, getting more 5-gallon pots and other growing systems into homes. We partner with Level International. They are a company who installs or builds hydroponic systems. So they'll be a part of those kits as well. And yeah, that's kind of what our focus is going to be this upcoming season. They are hopeful that potentially these systems that are distributed could give their excess produce back into the aggregation system, and then we can use that as well. Not necessarily for the school, just because it's grown in people's backyards, and but we can use it for our partners that are making value-added products like soaps and lotions and things like that. And then we can also use it for our partners who are doing free meals for the community and things like that. But overall, we are still figuring things out, but we're hopeful. And our biggest, I think, the one we're most excited about is the indoor growing facility. If we can get that up and running and that it's producing produce year round for the school system, that's going to be key, because it'll help sustain the organization, and it will raise that number from 26% locally grown produce to anywhere over 50-60%. So we're kind of excited about that. So in a nutshell, that's kind of who we are, and what we do. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Herb. Now it's time for Q&A. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to pose? If you do, feel free to, I'm not sure how we might want to do this, Dawn. You want to just take your mic?
Any way you want.
Good.
All right.
I have a question if I can start, I guess.
The fence guy is
Oh.
coming today at 3. I'm meeting him.
You're good. You're good, Allie.
Okay. My question was if the students at the schools you're providing the fresh produce to, if the students know like where that food is coming from and if it's promoted to them, or and if they've visited your garden and know what that space is like.
They have in the past, not this past season. The schools have visited, but I think Food Corps has done an excellent job in doing activities with the students around the produce, where it comes from. They actually they've made us kind of identify the specific farmer who has given the produce, and they do these presentations and these taste tests in the school. The last one was delicata squash, and they had baked it in the school, and they had the kids taste test it and explain to the kids how it was grown and where it came from and things like that. So yeah, Food Corps does a lot of that. We haven't had many schools visit here this last year, but prior to this year, a number of schools did come and learn and see how things were grown and where their food was coming from. One thing I did forget to mention was the mobile teaching kitchen, which is a school bus that we kind of converted into like this education demo instrument. And that bus we use for cooking demonstrations and nutrition education. We weren't able to use it this year because you weren't allowed to give out samples of food. So we were just like, yeah, this is not the community you want to go and cook food and have everybody smelling it and not be able to give them a sample. So we just used it for our virtual programming this year. Husky Nutrition filmed a number of cooking demos from it, and some other folks did some demos on how to preserve tomatoes, and there was another one, zucchini relish and things like that. But that mobile teaching kitchen is what we're hoping to use to get the nutrition education out to the schools who aren't able to bring their kids to our site.
Thanks. Yep, Dawn, go for it.
What do you want me to do, Nairi? I missed that.
I don't know.
I think there might be a question in the chat.
Okay, yeah.
Is that what you're asking me to do?
Yes.
I think, okay, great. There's a question in the chat from Jeff. Herb, can you tell us more about the farmers and growers that are part of your aggregation systems?
Yeah, absolutely. So we grow that acre that I told you about that we only grew 3 rows of produce on is owned by a family in Windsor called the Bednar's family, and they've been there for generations, and they own maybe about 60 acres down by the Connecticut River. And on that property is probably 11 different farmers and of many different cultures and backgrounds. And you know, there's Jose the pepper guy, you know, and there's Mark who grows a bunch of different stuff, and a lot of them grow mainly for their families and for their communities. But this year, you know, everybody had extra produce because people had planned their crops prior to the COVID thing, so they just had all this extra produce. So we just kind of went out to the farmers that we were growing with down there and said, hey, if you got anything extra that the school can use, we'll take it. And we were able to secure a lot of produce that way. And the cool thing is that they were all for it. They needed to get rid of it. And what we're going to do this year is also add a gleaning component to that as well. So, you know, we'll purchase some produce from them, but if they have a crop or if they have a few rows or some space that they know they won't get to or won't be able to harvest, we'll ask if we can glean it. And if we can, then we'll if the school can take what they want, and then the rest will donate. But they're all local. They're mostly in Windsor. But we've also aggregated too from some local farmers, like Zania has given us some stuff. And some other farmers that are like, they grow specialty crops. There's a woman who works at, or she has a space at the Knox Garden down at a church on the South End. She grew way more Scotch bonnet peppers than she knew what to do with. So we purchased those from her, and we're able to put those into the aggregation system as well. So we aggregate from a few different folks. We were also able to, even Gatta's and Beckett's, we were able to grab stuff from them too and sell it to the school system as well. So we even reached out as far as, you know, Glastonbury to kind of help keep the aggregation system going.
I have a question about that. So you're starting with Hartford Public Schools. Are you looking to stay in Hartford and just increase the amount of product flowing to the Hartford Public Schools? Or are you looking at other surrounding school systems as you grow? Do you think like Hartford Public Schools will absorb all the product, or are you interested in like reaching out to adjacent communities like East Hartford and just some of the other adjacent communities?
Well, just Hartford for now, because, you know, that's all we have the capacity to do. But, you know, Lonnie tells us all the time, like, we're still a drop in the bucket. Like, even if all of the Knox farmers and all of us, you know, here in Hartford were able to kind of figure out a way to feed the Hartford school system, we're still a drop in the bucket compared to what they use on an annual basis of, you know, of produce. So yeah, we have a lot of room to grow just in the Hartford school system. And plus we have so many other projects going on. What I'd love to see is somebody kind of own this system and then take it and expand it to what it has the potential to become. I can't do it, but I would love to to work with some folks who may be interested in seeing that happen. And we would support them in any way we could. Yeah, definitely Hartford for now. Yeah, that's all we have the capacity for.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about your home garden kits that you did this year, just what went into them, how you connected with the families to get them out.
Mm-hmm. So the options were a 5-gallon pot, a 5-gallon hydroponic kit, which is basically a 5-gallon bucket with holes punched in the top with plants growing out of them. We did a 4x4 raised bed, 8x4 raised bed, and then we also offered wood chips and soil. So some people didn't want boxes; they just wanted wood chips and soil. And we put it out on social media. I definitely am going to do it different this year. Because we got requests from as far as Manchester and Bloomfield, and we had no volunteers. So it was me and 2 other people that were driving all over the world delivering raised beds, and we installed them. So we built them, we filled them, we gave them the seedlings, we gave them the seeds, we gave them access to some virtual programming. But it was crazy, but it just felt great. Like, it was absolutely amazing. What we're gonna do this year, Little Civic Association, Hartford Health Initiative, and have them give us names of people that they've kind of vetted. And then once we get all those names, if we still need spaces to reach the 240, then we'll put it out to social media. That way we can make sure that the systems are concentrated in the neighborhood and not all over the world like they were last season.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Another thing we're adding to that home garden kit for this year, so there's the things that I mentioned, but we're also adding, I don't know if you guys have seen those canvas planter bags. So we're adding a couple of sizes of those to the system as well, just to give as many options as possible. So we're doing a 5-gallon hydroponic kit, but then we're also doing a 27-gallon tub hydroponic kit that has 20 spaces for plants in them. So we're adding an extra hydroponic kit to the program, and then we're adding 2 more size growing bags to the system as well. So there'll be tons of options, and we're going to definitely decrease the number of 8x4 beds and 4x4 beds. It was too much.
Nice. Okay, so we have just a couple more minutes. And we have a few more questions in the chat. I'll say Lisa's question first, which is, do you track the amount of your harvest that is being sold and donated to schools?
Yes, and I just gave an estimate, but this year was between 13 and 15,000 pounds that we sold to the school system. And I have the numbers broken down in terms of like how much of that was stuff that we purchased and how much of it was stuff that we grew. And I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think what we actually grew was closer to like 3,000 pounds. It wasn't a lot that we actually grew that went to the school, but most of it was stuff that we aggregated from local farmers.
Awesome. And there's one more question here from Allie. Did you get updates from the families you gave those garden kits to?
Yeah, we had them check in regularly. We had them send us photos because we had to give photos back to our funders. And most of the feedback was good. I think one of the comments that someone made is they wanted more virtual programming. They wanted more tools to be able to grow stuff. And I've been talking to Lauren Little about this for next season to help us out. We want to design a curriculum for young people around these home garden kits so that when we deliver them, parents have specific tools and activities that they can do with their children when these systems are delivered and installed. So content was the biggest feedback. They wanted more support. Some people just wanted the materials, but some people wanted a little bit more engagement. We gave them the option to come into KPSP to kind of participate in some workshops, but people just weren't comfortable going out. So we're going to try to beef up that content piece for this upcoming season.
Great. Some people in the chat, Herb, they're just saying thank you and that sounds awesome. And Nicholas says the mobile teaching kitchen sounds like the magic school bus.
It looks like it too. You gotta see it. It's pretty funny.
Yes. And Lauren says there's some great content in store, definitely. So thanks so much, Herb, for being our first presenter, our first guest speaker. We really appreciate you coming to the collaborative meeting and everyone else who came to support Herb today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I like talking about this stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like everybody here loves to hear about it too. So also, how can people get in touch with you, Herb, if they want to either volunteer or learn more about KPSP?
Either through our website, keneyparksustainability.org, or they can reach out to us directly, 333-8711, and I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
John, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thanks, Herb. Thanks, Nairi.